Please help us open the meeting with the Serenity Prayer. God, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change,
the courage
to change the things I can, and wisdom to know the difference.
Amen.
Today we will be talking about step 6. We will be referring to the OA 12 and 12 and the OA pamphlet sponsoring through the 12 steps. Possibly the 4 today or the Voices of Recovery. There will be time at the end of the workshop for sharing. I will be the first speaker, take about 5 minutes to tell my story, and then 15 minutes on the steps. Then there will be announcements, and we'll go on with the second speaker. Jerry, I'm going to watch my time, but if you find me running over, please let me know.
Okay, Gloria, I will.
Thank you. Okay, everyone, my name is Gloria. I'm a compulsive overeater. I entered OA August 9th of 1999, and God willing, I will celebrate the 16 years of abstinence this August, maintaining about 120-pound weight loss. The OA 12 and 12 says that some of us may have an emotional or physical predisposition to eat compulsively. I'm lucky I got both. I don't do anything halfway. I was born fat and stayed fat for 50 years of my life. And, you know, when I watch people on TV, they come home from work, they sit down, they kick off their shoes, and they relax. They don't immediately start binging like I did. They were living and I was eating. I tried every diet there was, just like many of you. I tried pills, purging, excessive use of laxatives, B12 shots, etc. I mean, it was always the same thing. Every day was going to be different, and it never was. I was always looking for the answer. Why am I like this? What terrible thing happened to me when I was a child to get me over 250 pounds? I kept asking why, which I later learned for me was the wrong question. And finally, I hit my bottom in, it started in May of 1999. I went to my son's college graduation, and the place where he graduated, it was very hot. And my vision years earlier was that I was going to attend the graduation. I would be very tiny. I'd wear a white linen suit. I'd just be cool as a cucumber, and I would look fabulous. And, of course, what happened was that I was 240 pounds when he graduated, and the only thing I could wear was an old skirt blouse. I was thoroughly and totally miserable. And so my solution was to go home and keep eating until August, when I gained another 15 or so pounds, till I finally went to OA. I was finally desperate enough to go to OA. And I know it's important to understand the patterns, and triggers in my life that kept me compulsively eating. But before I could work on doing any of that, I had to put down the food so I could be clear-headed enough to figure things like that out. So the right question for me when I came into OA was, what do I do? And fortunately for me, I had a sponsor who could answer that question in spades. She was able to tell me, suggest to me many, many things that I can do. And, I'm joking a little now, about her never-ending list of things that would help me, but I'm so grateful for it because I believe this is an action program. And it took me a year to lose the weight. And my life has never been the same. I love the life I have today. I thank God, OA, my program, and OA service, which I highly recommend. When I did my fourth step, it was explained to me that I needed to let go of my secrets, to see the patterns in my life, and to get down to the causes and conditions that led me to eat compulsively. So I did my inventory, listed my resentments and what was affected and all of that in accordance with the big book. But the real life-changing moment for me was my fifth step, as I'm reading my fourth step to my sponsor, when she said these very important words to me: what is your part? I mean, I was kind of stunned. I never believed I had a part in anything. I never did anything wrong. It was always people doing things to me. What a life-changing shift that was for me, to become aware of my part, that the choices and actions that I did that placed me in a position to be hurt or to be resentful, to be jealous, and those are things, those are feelings that character defects that always would lead me to eat. I had to examine my own behavior and take responsibility for it and make a change. I set the ball rolling through my character defects. Which brings me to today's topic, which is step 6, which is we're entirely ready to have God remove all these defects of character. The OA pamphlet sponsoring through the 12 steps says that step 6 can be very short, or it may require more writing. So some sponsors simply ask their sponsees if they are entirely ready to have their character defects removed. These are usually character defects, by the way, that came out when in doing the inventory. And if the sponsee says yes, the sponsor moves on to step 7. It was not so fast for me, and I'm very grateful for it. I was about 6 months into my recovery when we were doing step 6, and my sponsor, did I mention she's very savvy? Anyway, she knew I wasn't ready to simply understand and answer that question. I didn't know if I was entirely ready to have God remove my character defects. I didn't understand about character defects. I needed to write out my character defects, taking most of them from step 4, but I did make a new list. First, I listed the defect. Then I was asked to list what was good about it, and then how my addictive mind and personality compulsively took it to extremes and turned an asset into a liability. And then the most important question of all was, why was I holding on to it? What was my payoff? I was getting something from practicing that character defect. And until I could figure out what I was getting from it, there's no way I could be ready to have it be removed. Let me give you an example. One of my character defects was, and sometimes continues to be, procrastination. Why do today what you could put off for tomorrow? So a simple little task or problem would mushroom in my mind to climbing Mount Everest because of my procrastination. So then I was asked, well, what can be good about procrastination? And it was a good thing to investigate before I would take action, to know what I was getting into. If I was going to volunteer for something, it might be good to prepare, to know the time constraints. It would be good to know what questions I should ask in completing a task. But I could carry it too far. I would never stop preparing. I would never stop trying to find out and figure out every little thing ahead of time. I heard a funny joke about this sort of thing, and it's that if I were to go to the door of heaven and there were two doors, one said heaven and one said book about heaven, I would want to be going through the door that said book about heaven, because I would want to know every single thing there was to know about heaven before I actually stepped across the threshold. The old analysis but paralysis. What was my payoff for my procrastination? Well, if I never took action, if I never made a decision, I couldn't be criticized. I could criticize others, but nobody could ever criticize me. Nobody could say I'd made any kind of error in judgment. Another character defect I had and sometimes still have is being passive-aggressive. I have some attitudes toward money that I've worked on for many years. Money is a commodity. It's not a moral thing. And I would have my character defect of passive-aggressive would show up in that if we needed to buy something, my husband and I, for the family, he would always try to get my input, and I would always resist doing it, which was my way of basically reserving the opportunity to criticize whatever he would buy. I wanted the things that he would buy, but I wanted to be able to say I was against spending the money, or if it turned out it wasn't what we expected, then I could be critical. And that was my payoff. I got to feel superior at his expense. And I discovered that for me, most of my character defects were things I did basically to feel better at other people's expense or out of fear. And once I realized why I was hanging on to these defects, the question of whether I was entirely ready to have God remove them took on a whole new meaning. Sure, I wanted not to procrastinate. I wanted to stop being judgmental, but was I willing to give up feeling safe, comfortable? Was I willing to give up feeling superior? Was I willing to give up my fear? Was I willing to give up criticizing other people, looking at their faults instead of mine? And so what I learned in OA was not to berate myself for my feelings. What my actions are what's important. And even if I was not ready to give up one of those character defects, I still didn't have to eat over it. OA 12 and 12 says this is one of the most difficult steps. We want to have the difficulties our defects cause us removed while we hang on to them. We want our cake and eat it too. My friends and my family don't like me when I criticize and be judgmental. And I wanted to go right on pointing out their faults and still wanted them to love me, and it just doesn't work that way. And fear was at the root of it for me. So can I live without the payoff? What will I be like without the defect? Those were questions that, again, inspired even more fear. Were there defects I wanted to hang on to? The OA 12 and 12 says, for these reasons, we're tempted to rationalize the sixth step itself. After all, nobody expects us to be perfect. The sixth step calls for us, though, to be entirely ready to have God remove all our defects of character. Those of us who take this step with the total commitment required to make it work do indeed strive for the ultimate refinement of our character. The Big Book tells us the same thing, that through the steps, we dig out our character defects and expose them so we can eliminate them completely. I have to know and remember I'm powerless over my defects, just like I am over food, and it will be up to a higher power greater than me to remove them. I can't do it alone. It's not in my time. It's in God's time. So how do I become entirely ready? Well, I trust the process. I list the defects. I list what's good and bad about each. I examine the payoff. I pray for willingness. Willingness is so important. What do my defects do for me and to me? Why am I hanging on to them? Because they're useful and they make me feel good. Like I mentioned with mine, I was always feeling better at other people's expense. But the OA 12 and 12 tells me that being entirely ready means that we finally turn our backs on the old self-destructive behavior and make every effort to act and live by the principles embodied in the steps. I actively reach for recovery and put myself in a frame of mind to receive God's help. And finally, I'll close with something from that OA pamphlet sponsoring through the 12 steps, which says, behaving better than how we feel and acting well in all our affairs can result in character defects being removed. Please again remember, if you are not ready to give up a character defect, you still don't have to eat compulsively. And that's a wonderful thing to know. And I think we can all get very excited, or at least I can get very excited to see what my higher power can do to transform me. And as you do step 6, you can get really excited to see what your higher power can do to transform you. And we have 3 questions. I will read them and we'll read them again later. These are questions if you would like to journal. 1, what does it mean to be entirely ready? 2, do you have shortcomings you want to hold on to? If so, what is your payoff? 3, what is the difference between being entirely ready and being willing? And thanks, everyone, for the opportunity to share. Let's see. Okay. There are a couple of announcements before we continue with our second speaker, Jerry. This workshop is being recorded and will be posted on the OA website podcast page, as well as other podcast feeds like iTunes. If you speak, it is considered implied consent to have your voice and your share recorded and posted. To preserve your anonymity, please use only your first name or a fictitious name when you share. In accordance with traditions 6 and 10, please refer only to OA-approved literature when you share. According to our 7th tradition, we are self-supporting through our own contributions. Even though this is a virtual meeting, we still have expenses for the website and uploading the podcast. Please use special workshop meeting number 82278 when making your contribution. Go to www.oa.org and click on contributions, or you may send your contributions to the World Service Office, Post Office Box 44020, Rio Rancho, New Mexico, 87174. Thank you for helping us to carry the message.
Okay, thanks, Gloria. It's good to know how you are handling step 6. And I'm Jerry, and I'm an abstinent food addict and compulsive overeater. And want to talk to you about step 6. But before we do, I'll tell you a little bit about me. I'm a compulsive overeater. I've been in recovery for 22 years, and I'm maintaining a 100-plus pound weight loss, which is amazing because before OA, I couldn't stay on a diet to reach the goal. I mean, there always came that time when I would have to start eating again, you know. Somebody would say one bite won't hurt, or you're doing so good, you need a little reward or whatever, and I would have that first bite, and we all know where that goes. So OA was the first time I stopped dieting and got on what was called a plan of eating. when I first came to OA, we didn't have a plan of eating. We had abstinence as a tool. And I'll never forget, my first sponsor told me to not eat any sugar and to call her next day with my food plan. I thought, wow, that was pretty wild. But that, like Gloria said, my path was similar to hers. I had to put down the food before I was clear enough to really get any benefit from the steps. But I took the steps right away. In fact, I thought I would take the 12-step, 12-week program. I would lose 100 pounds, and wow, then everything would be wonderful and I could get out of here. But that hasn't worked that way. As you can see, I'm still here 22 years later, and I'm still abstaining from compulsive food and compulsive food behaviors. I'm at a healthy body weight, so I meet LA's definition of abstinence, and a plan of eating is now one of the tools, and I'm very glad for that because I'm still on a plan of eating and I don't have to diet anymore. So, like step 6, it's similar to abstinence because, I got something from being overweight. I didn't have to show up. I could blame a lot of things on my weight, and when I was miserable, I could just retire to isolation and start eating. And you know what? I don't have to do any of that stuff today anymore. I'm really grateful for this fabulous life I have thanks to Overeaters Anonymous. And I took the steps, like I said, right away. By my 6th week in OA, I was jumping right into step 6, not even really knowing that much about it. When I first took the steps, I didn't really use the big book back then. We were using the 12 steps of OA. The traditions weren't written yet, so I was basically going from there, which is good because if you are a big book aficionado like I am, you will notice that the big book only spends about a paragraph on not only step 6 but also step 7, and it would appear on the surface that it's a breeze. Well, I don't know. It was a little harder than that for me. So I wasn't even really sure what entirely ready meant, but I was willing to follow the directions of my sponsor. And she wanted, she told me that to go back to that 4th step and look through and see what character defects I could pull out of there. And like Gloria said, a lot of them weren't even serving me anymore, but I was hanging on to them anyway. I don't think anybody wants to change anything that makes them feel good, and some of my character defects were giving me a good feeling. If you look on page 54 of the OA 12-step and 12 tradition book, it describes us as wondering if we're going to be interesting without having those character defects like telling lies or exaggerating or gossiping. And by the way, I want you to know that there are 2 parts to gossip, talking and listening. And so it was really easy for me to not talk about people anymore, but to not listen to it was a big deal. And I'll tell you a quick story. I used to work in a small office, and in the morning we would get our break, and as soon as the 10 o'clock rolled around, these 2 coworkers of mine, man, they started to character assassinate everybody in that office, So 50% of gossip is listening, so I would just get up and leave. I would go in the break room and have my coffee there or, socialize with some of the other people in the other offices. But, and then I would come back and go to work. And, I had a deadline one month and I couldn't take my break. I had to work through it. And those 2 girls, the one girl said to the other one, we better go up and go to the break room because if we start gossiping, Jerry's going to have to get up and leave. So, that really meant something to me because without telling everybody, your gossiping isn't right, my actions spoke louder than any words I could have had. So I couldn't listen to the gossip because I would have been just as guilty if I had listened. So that was a really interesting time, interesting thing for me. So anyway, don't forget, though, we're asking God to remove our defects of character. We don't have to do it ourselves. So I don't have to worry about what's going to be left if my defects are just like suddenly removed, you know. I'll tell you what's going to be left, though, and that's your assets. Because when I was born, I didn't have any character defects. I was a perfectly beautiful little baby, and I didn't know any better, and I didn't have to do anything that wasn't really in line with a good charactered person. So, but what happened was I used those assets like in a wrongful way, usually as a defect, okay? And it worked so well, I just kept doing it over and over again until it turned from a asset to a defense and then to a defective character. So I had this great exercise with my sponsor. What she had me do was to go backwards from the defect and then figure out why I used it as a defense and then what the asset it was before I started to misuse it. To make it understandable, I'll use lying as an example. I guess if I looked back, at one point I told my mom a lie so I wouldn't get in trouble. You know, I blamed something I did on one of my 5 brothers and sisters. And it worked. She got mad at them instead of me. So it worked so good that I just started lying all the time. I even lied when the truth would fit. But then that defense turned into a defect of character. So I had to go back and say, what was it good about me that I used wrongly? And what it turned out to, what I thought it was, is that I'm a great storyteller. So I would take these stories and make them up as a lie to defend myself, and then I just kept doing it and doing it. So when, I was able to ask God to remove those defects of character in step 7, I was able to go back to being a wonderful storyteller. So I did that with all of the character defects that I could identify in my list. So if you want to do something like this yourself when you do step 6, you might want to make 3 columns and make the first column your list of your defects of character, and then in the second column, start thinking about why you started using that defect. How you used it to defend yourself or make yourself feel better or whatever. And then go back to say, well, what was it beforehand? And then identify all those assets, I really like doing that because I was able to see when I was able to ask God to remove those defects of character in the next step, I knew what was going to be left. I was going to be this beautiful, pure person that I was before I ever started compulsively overeating. Now, we're entirely ready to have God remove these defects of character, but it doesn't mean that they're all going to go away overnight. Like, I'm not just going to get up in the morning and be Snow White. Oh, God forbid about that, that God only removes the ones that stand in the way of my usefulness to Him and the people in my life. So, sometimes I'm just going to revert back to Him. I kind of like to parallel it with my overeating. I'm abstinent 22 years, and sometimes I get a craving or I get like a desire to compulsively overeat. Not too much anymore, but when it happens, I have compassion for myself because now you're going to know how old I am, because I was 43 when I came to OA, which means I had 43 years to perfect my compulsive overeating and my character defects. And now I'm abstinent 22 years. But by repetition, I'm better at overeating and better at the character defects because I've done them for a longer period of time. So maybe if I stick around in OA another 20 years or so, I'll be better at the character assets and being abstinent than I was when I first came to OA. Now, the good news about making this list is there's really no right or wrong way to do it. I mean, if you identify a character defect and see why you started, using that defect, and then you identify what asset you think it was, whether it's right or wrong, it's right for you. So that's a good thing. So don't worry about doing it right or wrong, but this is a great exercise, and it'll help me feel good about who I would be when these character defects were removed. So I was entirely ready that have God remove these defects because I knew that the whole thing really is all about restoring my beautiful birthright assets. So that's what I have to say about step 6. What we're going to do now is we're going to open the line. I'm going to open the line for sharing. I think I can do it. You can press *6 yourself if you want to come on the line, and then mute yourself again. I believe *5 will mute you again, so that we keep. This is a really beautiful, clear line. So, just as a reminder, though, this workshop is being recorded, and it's going to be posted on the OA website podcast page. And if you haven't been there yet, you need to go, because all of these workshops we've been doing are there for your enjoyment. And there's also podcasts that we did last year on this step. So enjoy those. But since it's being recorded and posted, you're going to want to preserve your anonymity. So please just use your first name or a fictitious name when you share. And then in accordance with Tradition 6 and 10, please refer to OA-approved literature when you share, okay? So we're going to allow about 15 minutes for that. So if you want to share, you could press *6 and come on the line.
Hello, this is Rebecca.
Hi, Rebecca. Go ahead.
Hi, I'm a compulsive overeater and bulimic. And what I wanted to say was how grateful I am for these Working All the 12 Steps podcasts. I've finally caught up from the past months and was pleased that I could, attend one live. And so I'm grateful for everyone's service in contributing to this program. And interestingly enough, and how my higher power works is I finished up step 4 and step 5, and just by a whole series of events, my young son is out of town this weekend, so I was going to work on step 6 and wrote my list of character defects, and then went to the OA website and realized that today was the second Sunday, and it just so happens that it's step 6. So I learned so much from the sharing today, and I'm going to use all this information that I've received to really gain a more profound understanding of my defects and the assets. And I hadn't anticipated making kind of columns and lists and working it that way. I didn't have enough information. And so, and while I discussed it with my sponsor and have some really great suggestions from her, this has been just extremely valuable, and I know that I stand the greatest chance of success for really having these defects removed by attending today. So I just wanted to say thanks for that.
Oh, great.
Well,
thanks for sharing,
you,
Rebecca.
Yeah, thank you, Rebecca.
The floor is open for sharing.
Please don't be shy.
Mm-hmm.
Hi, this is Tina.
Go ahead, Tina.
Hi, I want to thank both of you for your service and not just your service, but the workshop. You both were fantastic and a lot of good information. What I love about this program for me is I can keep doing 6 and 7. And without beating up myself. I can't remember if it's 6 or 7, which talks about if we're surprised or angry or whatever, if a defect comes back, then we're not being humble. But by continuing to work the steps, and when I finish 12, I go onward to 1, and I keep doing 6 and 7 at a different level. And, especially with 6 in terms of finding character defects that maybe X number of years ago in program I didn't realize was a defect. And yet listening to the two of you today, I now have some wonderful exercises and tools by which I can continue to become the type of person that my higher power wants me to be. So I thank you both, and I think this is a phenomenal, both live and in person, and then the fact that it's recorded and there on the website. So I'm looking forward to the rest of the steps. Thanks so much. I'm going on.
Thank you, Tina.
Thanks, Tina.
Hi, this is Patty. I'm a food addict.
Hi, Patty.
Hey, Patty.
Hello. I'm calling from Holmes Beach, Florida, and I just want to say that I've really enjoyed all of the second Sunday workshops. I try to listen to each one live, and it's great to hear your voices, Jerry and Gloria, and you had lots of good stuff to share, as usual, and just wanted to take this opportunity to thank you for your service.
Thanks, Patty.
Well, thank you, Patty. Great to hear from you.
You're welcome. Bye-bye.
I know there's about 20 people on the call, so please feel free to share with us.
Hi, this is Amy, and this is the second time I've been on the call, and I want to thank you both for your service.
Thank you, Amy.
And I'm very new to OA, and so this has been very helpful for me, especially 4, 5, 6, and 7, to take a look at myself, and I know that that's pretty much what I need to do. But you guys mentioned the food plan. Is that in a pamphlet of some sort?
Well, the best thing that you might want to do, Amy, is to get a sponsor and talk to your sponsor about the best way to come up with a plan of eating for you. If that, or you can also get from the OA website the Dignity of Choice pamphlet, which has several food plans that have worked for our OA members.
Okay.
Some people go to nutritionists too.
Okay, I think I have that one somewhere from years ago.
Good.
And Amy, this is Gloria. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
You might also check out that pamphlet called A Plan of Eating. It's a great pamphlet.
Mm-hmm.
I will. I'll write that down.
It doesn't have a food plan, but it's got a lot of helpful information and suggestions.
That'd be great. And I like the sponsorship through the 12 steps. I'll have to look for that too.
Sure.
Yeah, because the steps to me are very important, and I guess I'm just opening up to looking at them rather than just being a bystander. I was in another program as well, and so I love the OA 12 and 12. I really feel that it gives. I love Bill Wilson. He's marvelous. You know, whatever he gave us is marvelous. But OA really opened my mind to what I'd be looking for character defects and that kind of thing. So I'm very grateful for that book.
Thank you, Amy.
You're welcome.
We're also open to anyone else that might have a question about step 6 or any of the other steps.
Okay, I'm going to buzz off. Thank you.
Thank you,
Thanks, Amy.
Hi, I'm Sally, compulsive eater and sugar addict.
Hi, Sally.
Hi, great discussion. I have worked through all 12 steps, but when I look through my workbook and when I hear you speak, I got a lot of work to do. And my two big defects that I see now that are really in my face are my criticalness of others and myself, and my impatience. And I have prayed for those to be gone. And the more I pray, the more I get the time to practice. I get the different scenarios that come up for me to practice. And the one thing that has occurred to me during this and other phone meetings, because I'm in an area now where there isn't any meetings, there isn't any face-to-face, so I'm having to do a lot of phone meetings. And it really, I get very emotional when I say this, but admitting that I am imperfect. And for some reason, this just brings me to tears. And I'm not quite sure why, but it's an issue that I really have to look at, because it really hurts me for some reason that I am flawed, that I am not perfect. And I guess what drew me to OA not only was the weight loss, but was also, I was going to get perfect. I was going to get sane. I'm still crazy and loopy, but I am headed towards a different place, and I have a relationship with people in the program and with my HP, who I choose to call God, that has never been as strong as it is now. And the relationship with myself has increased manyfold and has gotten better. But I have a lot of work to do. You both were great speakers, and I thank you. And what a great topic to talk on as the sixth step, because I sort of thought that was kind of easy. Guess what? It isn't, and it wasn't. And I'm ready to go back. And I'm ready to go back and look at it again. So thank you very much for being there. I appreciate you all. Thank you.
Hey, thank you. I'm going to remute the line to make sure that it stays clear. Hold on. So if you want to share, just press *6 and you can be next. Or if you have a question, you're welcome to ask. If we don't have anybody else that wants to share, we could close this early.
Jerry, I think I might just repeat the questions we have for journaling.
That's a
if
great
anyone
idea.
didn't get them. Okay. First, what does it mean to you to be entirely ready? 2, do you have shortcomings you want to hold on to? If so, what is your payoff? 3, what is the difference between being entirely ready and being willing? Okay, those are them.
Okay, and then also if you want to make a worksheet, you can have the 3 columns. The first column will be your defective character that you've identified, and then the second column will be how you started to use that to defend yourself or to make yourself feel better. And then the third column will be to figure out what character asset of yours this was before you misused it and then turned it into a defective character. So I want to thank Gloria for her wonderful sharing and remind everybody that the opinions expressed here today are those of individual OA members and do not represent OA as a whole. And Gloria and I thought we would close the meeting with Roseanne's promise. I put my hand in yours. So if you know that, you can say it with us. I put my hand in yours.
Put my hand in yours.
And together we can
do
what we could never do
alone.
No longer is there a sense of hopelessness. No longer we each depend on unsteady willpower. We are all together now. Reaching out our hands for power and strength greater than ours. And as we join hands, we find love and understanding beyond our wildest dreams.
keep coming back.